muffled sound.
Start?
Yep.
Dig it.
All right.
Oh, that's the air conditioner, turn it on. Okay.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing good.
Good, sir. I'm doing better than that. How we doing tonight?
Great.
It's gonna be a call and response.
Okay.
We're used to that. We're good at church. Yeah, right. It's gonna call and response. Well, my name is Sherman Saxton. For those who don't know me, I've been in the community for a lot of years as a youth. I'm a very young youth. And growing up here in St. Pete, still living on South Side. Excuse me, can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So yes, I've been around, and like others here, been involved in the community one way or another, having a dialogue with the young lady over there, very like the old times, so went for more than mine, the old stories. So today, well, I want to thank you all for coming out, because to get 3 people on a weekday is hard, let alone the people we have in the crowd we have today. So thank you for coming out. Give yourselves a hand. All right. So what are we here for? We're here to discuss the Second Amendment, gun ownership, responsible gun ownership in our community. And we have panelists here. We have Mr. Anderson to my left, and our other panelists will be showing up soon, correct, to give us more insight and in-depth analysis of what we're talking about. So, I'm going to read something, and I want everybody should be familiar with this. I'm going to read our Constitution, because in order to buy into the Second Amendment, you have to buy into the whole document. And it's called a living, breathing document. Why? Because it's forever growing. Thomas Jefferson said the Constitution should be visited every 20 years. He said that because he knew that generations change after 20 years. So who would have ever thought that something like sexuality itself would be contested in the Supreme Court? They never thought about anything like that, but they knew that once it was gone and buried, that this document will progress and move on. So I'm going to read this document, and we should all be familiar with this language. We'll start off with "We the People." So who we talked about, we the people? Now, before we go into this historical deal, we know, we're educated people, we know that at one point it did not pertain to people of our skin tone. We know that, but now it does. So we have to take part in this situation, take part in this institution and this society. So I'm going to read it real quick. It says, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." What do you mean by a perfect union? What they were dealing with was they were saying, looking at old Europe, looking at the old world, and they're saying, that ain't happening, that's dysfunctional. So we want to create a more perfect union, right? It says to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. I'll just start on that one. Provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. Do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. That means us right now. We can't go to Second Amendment without understanding that preamble and what it means to us, particularly us in this room. What does that mean? We've had a long, rocky road, right? And it's going to stay that way until we change it and we start participating more, in my feelings. So, we talk about the rights of an individual in this society as it relates to the government and the individual. So, a few years after they signed the Constitution, they came up with this thing about the Bill of Rights. And that, the rights of the young lady back there, you, me, yourself, our rights, right? You probably watch it, as a cop when you read the Miranda, that's part of your rights. And we have 10 amendments. We're talking about the Second Amendment tonight. Let me read this real quick. It says, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." what it started out to be and what has grown over the years. Well, we know from history that after the Revolutionary War, they didn't have a military or police force. So each male was required to store and quarter a weapon, meaning in their house or whatever. And so that was the impetus behind a well-regulated militia. So if there was some type of trouble, I can go to you, Chris, and you to form a band to thwart this bad situation that's coming towards us. That is what it was intended for. Over the years, through court challenges and precedents, we've seen it grow to now as individuals, we have the right to bear arms. Right? Let me say that real slow. The right to bear arms is ingrained in the very document that governs us. I don't take that lightly either. I take that very serious. We had a conversation earlier, just a few minutes ago, talking about gun ownership and responsible gun ownership. So, tonight, we have our speakers on the subject, Mr. Anderson,
Harrell.
Mr. Harrell will give us some more insight and in-depth analysis on this very question. I want to tell you the power of language and the power of observation. During World War II, the Japanese High Council spoke about invading America.
Yes.
So the boys sat down one day playing cards, drinking whiskey, and said, let's try to invade America. I think it was Admiral Yamamoto said, behind every blade of grass is a what? Is a rifle. It's gonna catch hell. Shock and awe is one thing, occupation is another thing. So they knew good and well it was gonna be house to house, street to street. Years ago, I ran into 4 young Marines come back off the leave. I was picking my wife at the airport. So this old crazy Marine started talking to him, and I said, well, what's the action like in Iraq? I said, well, is it house to house? They said it was couch to couch. That's how close to Florida the fighting was. I said, wow, that's powerful. So, how does gun ownership affect our community? Well, unfortunately, we have some negative images. We see Pookie with his bandana on, with it going sideways or upside down. And we see that, and that's the sort of the picture people get in their mind about our community and gun ownership. I would dare to argue there are more people who carry guns legally than there are illegal. I would argue that with anyone. So let me bring these gentlemen up here, and they're going to give us some good. Mr. Anderson, you mind coming up for us, and who you represent, sir?
So, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, my name is Jamarkus Anderson. I am the owner and head instructor of Integrity Tactical Solutions, LLC. I started out in the, I'm relatively new in the firearms world. I've only been carrying for about 5 or 6 years. And I got into instructing just over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. And sitting here listening to my brother here, a couple of things kind of popped in my head. One, about the Japanese during World War II. They did actually sit down and discuss, America's problem, we need to hit them now. Then they realized, that's not a good idea. America's strapped. Right now, I can tell you, there are more guns in America than there are people, easily. Just in Florida alone, there are over 2 million licensed carriers in the state of Florida. Just Florida. I don't even think about Texas. They roll heavy in Texas. So really quick, who I am. I'm a native of Tampa Bay, born and raised here. I'm a graduate of HBCU. I'm a graduate of Bethune-Cookman University. Came out in 1997. My family's here, my mom's here, my dad's here. We're all here. I started out initially as just a martial artist, just I can fight.
Let's,
Just period. I wasn't worried about going out and about anywhere because I can fight. But the more I looked around, the more the world changed. The more I talked to my friends in law enforcement, they out here cheating. So my previous philosophy was, you know, I'm not really for guns, I'm not really against guns. You walk up on me, I stab the hell out you. Just being real.
Yes.
But, you know, like I said, as things change, you know, I had to change with it. You know, either you evolve or you die. So I decided, why limit myself to just my hands and a blade when it's a lot more than hands and blades out there. So got myself educated. The more I learned, the better I got at it. And the more I looked around, I realized that there weren't many people that looked like us out there teaching. And you know as well as I do, our concerns, our problems, our fears ain't the same as theirs. So it's hard for them to come, us to go to them and try to learn when they don't think like us, they don't walk like us.
right,
They're not walking in our circles.
right.
So I decided right then and there, I'm gonna put myself in a situation where I can learn as much as I can and bring home to my people, because my people need it.
Mhm.
So, you know, so that's why I'm doing this. You know, I can tell you stories about having to take firearms off of people that didn't need them, that didn't had them legally. I can tell you that my mother called me because she had to do the same thing for my family members. You know, they had a gun they didn't have a business having, so she took it from them. And she called me, she's like, Jim, what do I do with this thing? So I'm in mid-sentence, okay, Mom, just take it, you know, put it in a box. And before I could even finish that second sentence, I heard a pop.
Wow.
Scared the devil out of me. Turned out things loaded, because of course they're loaded, and she shot her mattress. So I ran over there like gangbusters. You know, she was okay, she was shook, but she was okay. But that just tells me a lot of our people, they don't know what they don't know, and not knowing will get us hurt. So at that point, that was a sealer right there. You know, I'm educated, but now I need to educate us, the rest of us, so we don't have stuff like that. You know, and just lots of things I can talk about. I can talk about the fact that, you know, through all through history, from slavery on up, Sister Tubman, you know, she stayed strapped. Why? Because she's running behind enemy lines trying to get us out of there, right? You know, all through history, you know, anything that had a big change to it, anything that we had to fight for or actually had to go and take, we didn't go out there, please sir, can I have some more? It was, that's ours, you gonna give it to us, or we gonna take it, right? And you can't do that empty-handed, right? You know, fast forward to the 60s, you know, you got the Panthers, you've got the Deacons for Defense. You know, those brothers didn't go out there asking nicely. You know, they did with the Klan. Klan ain't playing around. You know, the cops, well, the Klan, anybody point of view? They weren't playing around, right? So when our people went out, when they got the right to vote, and the Klan was like, "Now you wait," brothers go look and said, "Yes, we is," and I dare you to come in here and tell me that I can't. You know, but all of that wasn't asking nicely. That was us standing there with rifles in our hands saying, "Come on, I dare you." When the Panthers were out cop watching to keep our people safe, you know, all these things we did because we were armed, and we could not have done it otherwise. And the people that will, want to bring up Dr. King. Dr. King was nonviolent. Yes, Dr. King was peaceful. He was not passive. Look at any history book that you want to look in, and they will tell you Dr. King's house was a GD fortress. He had guns everywhere in that house.
Preach.
So
Preach.
all this time, so I can't figure out, so how we got from there to this, every time I mention I carry a gun, or that my friends carry guns, or that I have guns, I hear, oh my God, what do you need a gun for? You think? We got what we got because we were armed and weren't afraid to fight. Why would I throw all that away? Right? So it's my job, your job to make sure we stay educated, make sure we stay strapped, and make sure that no matter what comes our way, when the bad comes, we're ready to propel the bad. You know, and I'm not gonna talk to you, we're gonna do some back and forth. So, bottom line, Jamarkus Hansen, attack, and I'm really here to help everybody get educated and erase that stigma that black man plus gun equals criminal. It ain't like that. And don't let the media tell you that, because you listen to the media, it's the Wild West out there, and it's not. Real talk. I'm getting away, because I need to get a lot of people up here.
Talking about historical significance and how we got from where we are to where we are right now. From the French and Indian Wars to the present, black men have always carried guns. There has been a time period that we did not, unless you're talking about black code laws and things of that nature, but free men were also carrying weapons too. Everybody familiar with the Tulsa riot?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, when we talk about Tulsa riots, one thing that people, that was the first time that aerial bombing was used in the United States. Do you know why they bombed, aerial bomb? Anybody know why? Because contrary to common belief, the black folks got the best of white folks. The white folks had to mobilize the Boy Scouts, Women's Auxiliary in the rear because they were getting stomped. This is why they bombed air. See, we all know that. We think, I heard the language, they were just jealous. No, they bombed for tactical reasons because we beat the hell out of them. And that's the true fact. Really bombed. There's the long, hot red summers after World War I, like troops came back. Keep in mind, places like Tulsa, places like the Red Hot Summer up in Detroit and Chicago. What element was there? We still had, look in context, we still had veterans from the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, all right? So we had, in World War I, we had people who were trained, not just have a firearm, but trained in tactics and maneuvers. You see, this is why they end up bombing Tulsa, because I said again, we beat the hell out of them. So don't think that there's a period that we just did, but this never on. The Maroon and Gullah people fought their way to freedom here in the United States, in Central and South America, in the Caribbean. You hear stories of Maroon communities who fought for their freedom with the gun. So before we, like the brother was saying, we're thinking that guns and black people, when we see these negative images, well, that's probably on purpose. But that's something through education that we can render. I have some references here we'll go over afterwards, but I'm gonna bring up the other speaker. I'm sorry, Mr. Harrell is gonna come and speak to us also, okay?
Hi, everybody. My name is Bryant Harrell, and I'm the owner and founder, should I say co-owner and founder of Fist of Faith Firearms Training. My background is I've been doing martial arts, started out martial arts about 50 years, and former military veteran, and also special operations soldier, part of November Company in the Navy, and also a weapons specialist. So I've been personally carrying a firearm for the past 35 years. And I had my CCW, my concealed carry, for about 30 years. And been actually instructing and teaching firearm safety for about the same, for about 30 years. And then became a full-time instructor here in this city conclusion that we need education in our community, especially when it comes to us as a people. That's one of the most important aspects. I hear a lot of the guys just talking about everything, Tulsa and a lot of other things. From a military standpoint, knowing that it's so important, because what happens when people come from other countries and you see they're starting to infiltrate and come from other countries, and what happens? A lot of things are happening right around our noses and we're not even dealing with it. We have about 75 to almost 80,000 black women missing across this country. Real talk, when the last time we got an Amber Alert. It's been an epidemic or a pandemic, everything we talk about with COVID-19, but what about human trafficking? That's affecting our community. Yet, people have a problem with firearms. And I truly believe that if some of those ladies had the training and had the proper education, they would still be around here today, not be missing. So, firearm safety and firearm training is so important in our community. We know that we can go back and look at many schools, many high schools all across the country, even now today, but even if we go back 50 years ago, 60 years ago, in the high schools, where you can see they were actually teaching how to shoot firearms. A lot of that happened, everything, in communities that doesn't look like mine. And what we were fed, boys in the hood, we were fed a totally different version of gun safety. We were fed a totally different, education when it comes to firearms. Growing up, I had firearms in my home. I had an uncle that was a constable. My grandfather was a constable, and my other uncles were both military veterans as well. So there was always firearms around the house, and that was an education that this was a tool, a powerful tool, but yet was a tool. I was taken to the range as a young kid, shot, and then continued to go on and understand the ins and outs of firearm. So where actually, when I was in the military, I became an armorer, and I was teaching weapons to them. And even today, I work with some of the state troopers here in Florida, and I work with local law enforcement all around the country. Not only teaching them how to fire the weapons, but the most important aspect is teaching them how to keep it. And that's what we do here, and that's what we do here in Florida. My wife and I teach gun retention because it's so important. Everybody think you know how to shoot, but can you keep it? That's the most important thing, being educated on how to keep that firearm and how to keep it safe. Yeah. So it's so important. Once again, you hear my colleagues up here, everything is so, education is so important. And we plead the community, especially the African American community, the Black community, to come out and start training. I hear time and time, and it behooves me that, well, I know how to shoot, trust me, you don't. Even when you need to get educated, even when you think you do, you don't. And a lot of things that really bothers me is that because of lack of education, time to time, when I'm confronted and talk about coming to train the class, we have too many people in the African community that have felonies. So it's so important that we gotta watch our behaviors, because then our rights are starting to be taken away from us. Also too, if there's not violent felonies, then we need to do something to get your rights restored. So you can get your arm. That's one of the things that we're working on in our project, is helping those get their rights restored back. So we work talking to lawyers and getting lawyer friends to help get people rights restored back so they can get their firearm, so they can get trained up and get certified. And then the other thing that bothers me and confuses me is that too many of you guys have taken your concealed carry class, but haven't took your paperwork in. Come on, Black people. Come on, Black people. You just paid your $40, $50, $60, $70, $100 or more, and you haven't turned your paperwork in.
Can't tell you how many calls I get. When is my thing? When is my thing?
Yeah, come on, when my thing expired, listen, you need to go ahead and handle that. Also too, if you have a concealed carry permit and you legally carry it, do so. Real talk, I confront the police officers that we train. You're not carrying off duty, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's like the American Express card. Leave home without it. So I'd be remiss not to bring the partner in crime up here, should I say partner in crime, everything my lovely wife up here. So you hear from a woman's perspective on what it means to be a responsibly armed citizen. My lovely wife, yeah.
We got a whole bunch of information here.
Yeah.
And the most unrepresented person in society is who?
Black woman.
You say it loud.
The black woman.
Black woman.
The black woman, come on.
Underrated person in society.
Come on.
The black woman, come
Let me
on.
give you something here. Rosa Parks. You never seen Rosa Parks on the front lines, did you?
Yep.
You know why she said, you gonna spit in my face? She said she loved Dr. King, but she carried a pistol and a rifle.
Yes,
Van
she
Gogh
did.
Hammer said she had 4 shotguns
Preach,
in 4 corners of her house.
preach.
I'm talking about Robert Williams, who I have on, and his wife Mabel, 2 dynamic personalities. They ran the Klan out of Monroe, North Carolina.
Come on.
Because see, once you get that reciprocal, right? That's a big word. Know what that means? You're gonna get yours too. I get mine, you're gonna get yours.
Mhm.
Dr. Khalid Muhammad, God bless his
Come
soul,
on.
he says,
Security force.
he asked Sister Moore, the oldest member living of the Marcus Garvey movement, and she told a story about when they were in New Orleans. Marcus Garvey had announced, I'm going to speak in New Orleans. Well, the sheriff at the time said, oh, no, you're not. So he said, Garvey, if you get up on that stage and say one word, I'm gonna arrest you. Well, the day came, the infamy came, and Marcus Garvey walked towards the podium and he stopped. And the sheriffs rushed in, but when the people in the audience could have went pulled out their weapons,
Mhm.
the sheriff stepped back and said, go ahead, Mr. Barton, you did.
Mhm.
Dr. Collins, people was around, he said, Dr. Collins said, don't you know if Malcolm would have allowed not to search and allowed weapons to come in, do you think he'd probably still be alive today?
Yes, he will.
Because you get that reciprocal back and forth. You know, your life is in danger also, you don't think twice, you better preach, run on somebody else. You understand? So this is what we're talking about. Women, their role that they play in this movement, I think is vital, because they are protected about children, so on and so on. Now we have Mrs.
Harrell.
Sorrell, come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm Liot Harrell, Brian Harrell's wife. And, unlike these gentlemen who have been carrying, packing, and trained for like eons or more, firearms are fairly new to me. I am a martial artist, and I've been training in martial arts about 30 years. And very similar to you, my mindset, because I can fight. I am a 7th degree black belt. I can protect myself well that way. So I walked around with a lot of confidence in knowing if I had to, I can defend myself. However, also, like you, I do see and I'm very much aware of the world that we're living in, how things are changing, the neighborhood environment in which I live and I'm surrounded with. I became much more open-minded and realizing that yes, these are a weapon, but there are other weapons out there that I can utilize that can help protect myself and my family as well. With the firearm, with the gun, I'm also a range safety officer. It's so important. One of the biggest things that I think are lacking in our community is education. There's so many fears that I had, admittedly so. You know, my husband, military, we have guns all over in our house, and I was one of those like, no, I don't want to touch it, no. He bought me a gun, I had a gun sitting in my panty drawer for like forever. And as no lies, I'm sitting there hearing the guns pop off 2-3 blocks down the road. You know, I'm like, okay, what if? And we have a daughter at home, a young daughter, 21. What if something happened? What if someone came knocking at my door? You know, I need to go and get some training. And once I actually went to the range and started learning, and by the way, I'm an excellent shot, I must say. I'm a very good shot.
Fun fact, women generally shoot better
better
than
than
men.
men.
It's true, it is true. We tell our students that. It is true. It's that maternal instinct that we have, that mama bear, that you know, the female is the predominant fighter, killer, hunter in all species, animal and human. It is the female tiger that goes out to hunt and kill, the female lioness. It's in us. We have more to protect. So once we can get out of our heads, and just let our natural instinct kick in, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. And that applies also to firearms. I hope and pray I never have to use it, but I have the peace of mind knowing if I have to use it, it's a bad day for that person. Because, and not only knowing how to shoot, but knowing the mechanics of it. And if there's a jam, and if I need to reload, you can shoot, but when it's blank, what do you do then? Those are the things that, shooting does come instinctually for women. But then once you do go and you learn how to shoot, it's important to train. It's so important to train and become familiar. So it's not some scary thing. I'm familiar. It's a tool. It's a very powerful tool. It is a tool that can save your life. And if you need to use it, you should be able to use it and use it well and use it easily, and you're good. And not only not just knowing how to shoot it, but also knowing the laws around it. That's for not just women, for all people. There's so many things that people don't talk about. I took a concealed carry class before we started teaching it. I took a 2.5-hour concealed carry class. There were like 30 plus people in there. Look, yeah. And at the end, we got to go into a conjoining room, and we shot like a pellet or something. One bullet, one shot. It wasn't even a real gun. And I remember we all stood in the waiting room for about 25 minutes, all of us. There was this thick silence in the air. And it was just a very uncomfortable feeling that I felt. And then talking to other women that were waiting to get their seats, you're like, really, that's it? I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I feel quite prepared. And then, 4 years down the road I took a more thorough concealed carry class in which I learned about the laws. The laws that, if you have to fire, what happens then? The what happens then is a huge part of the equation that nobody talks about. Learning how to protect yourself. Learning there's insurance that you can actually get to protect yourself. And I am not a firearms expert like my husband. For me, who's somewhat of a novice, that gives me peace of mind, knowing, okay, if I have to use it in a situation, if I have to protect myself and do what's necessary, I know that there's people out there that can help me, that can assist me, and that's something a lot of our people, we don't really talk about, we don't educate each other about, and it's so important. Education is key. It's so important. I am a preschool director, work with kids, and as you all know, there's been a lot of things in the news about shootings and children in schools. And I also work at a church, and although I may not be able to have my firearm in the classroom, you better believe it is on the premises. And most of our church does have their concealed carry on the premises to protect the flock. And I just gotta say, with everything happening, I don't want to get too emotional, but if I had to protect the flock, you better believe I'm gonna be right in and protect it. No question. Right? So with that, one of my teachers, Black, on her way to school, she's running late. She calls me, I'm running late, I got pulled over. I'm like, okay, so she comes in. I did not know what she was about to tell me. So she's like, I got stopped, I got pulled over right over here. And a Black officer came up to the car. And, can I see your license, registration, and all that? So she gives him her wallet, and as she's opening the wallet, he sees she has a concealed carry. I didn't even know. She knows we teach firearms. We never talked about it. She never mentioned it. But he sees that she has a concealed carry permit. So he goes, he runs her stuff, he comes back, and he gives it to her. He says, so I see you have a CCW. And whether the person is Black or white, when a cop asks you about anything about a gun, you get nervous. So she starts stammering, like, yeah, but I don't have it. He said, why not? Why not? He said, we want the people that are legally, legally allowed to have their firearms. We want you to have it. He said, what good is this little card gonna do to protect you if you don't actually carry your firearm? He said, and this is from a Black police officer. He said, that helps us. We rely on our outstanding citizens who are legally able to carry. especially the women. He said, especially our women. And that right there, she told me that, I just went and sat down. I mean, that really was a wake-up call to me. Because even at that point, I had it, was I carrying? No, but that was a wake-up call to me, to be more proactive. And especially in the 2 months since we had this discussion, the things that have happened around us. What if, God forbid, what if something happened and I could have made a difference had I had my firearm, but I chose not to carry, and I could have. You know, so education is so important. Talking about it is so important. Getting familiar with it is so important. And yes, I am out there. I am representing. And I gotta tell you guys, when I go to the range, it makes me so excited to see all the women, all the black women that are starting to come out there. So thank you guys for your support. Thank you for the time.
Something else about the gun. I think it has a lot of anxiety amongst men because of our imposter. Now, I'm a combat veteran. I did some months in Central America, South America in the 80s, and then going to the first Gulf War. So I was an infantryman, so I was trained with weapons. I understand it. 2 weeks ago, I went with the brother who represented, we were speaking to him about him earlier, up in Talking Springs. And I got such an education that day by itself, how to shoot a gun, how to be tactical. Yes, I'm already familiar with weapons, but I learned so much. And I think that whole swallow your pride thing has to take place in our community too. And I want to bring up the young lady here who also organized before we put you on the camera there. But the importance of training, not just with the weapon, but understanding how to deploy your weapon. You know, Lady mentioned about insurances that you can get that we didn't know about, that you should have, right? So a lot of things go into this, and it's not just going to be a one-time thing, but we're going to stay on this subject until people get it and they know what to turn to or who to answer, to get answers from. We'll start the question and answer now, or no? Oh, you want to? Come on.
Let's get this feedback first.
Come on, don't be shy.
Just plug it in, so there you go.
Hello, Internet. My name is Beatrice Farrell, and I want to thank our panelists. I'm representing the NAACP St. Petersburg Chapter, and we're going to have a series of workshops about the Bill of Rights. And we wanted to start with the Second Amendment, especially in our community, because I believe that we're underrepresented in this arena. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions and ask that you come up and talk about it. And from all three of our perspectives, can you talk about what steps do you think we can take to destigmatize gun ownership in our community?
So the way I see it, the way you destigmatize something like this is you have to be visible. Okay, I know 11 people, you know, off the top of my head that I know carry on a daily, but it's never talked about. It's always shh, don't tell anybody. You know, you have to be in those circles. Go to the gun shows. Go to the range. Be out in public. You know, I'm not saying go and like, yeah, I carry a gun, but when the conversation comes up, speak on it. You know, let people see you. You know, your family members that know you're not a psychopath. You know,
Free
that know that you're a nice person, that, you know, that, you know, they know who you are. So let them know, yes, I carry a firearm. You know, let your white friends know, you know, that you carry, you know, when they're in their little circles talking about, yeah, I just bought this brand new 2011, you know, jump in that conversation. You know, let them know, yeah, I'm here too.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah, and I can't tell you the number of times I have gone to the range and, you know, they out there and they're doing stuff, like doing everything wrong. And I'm like, okay, do I fix this? You know what, I'm gonna fix this because I don't wanna die. Because they doing stuff and they put me in danger now. So, you know, I come to them, hey, excuse me, you know, I'm a certified instructor. Can I give you a little suggestion? You know, just in the back of the head so I don't die. But you know, just kind of, you know, and their eyes get big as saucers. I'm like, one, I can shoot better than they can, and two, I know what I'm talking about. But the more I do that out in public spaces, you know, the more that stigma goes away. You know, so we have to be visible. You know, that's how I see it. And
I totally agree with my brother Jamarkus. The face, they have to see us as a people. They have to see us come out, and they have to see us, you know, doing things. That's why we post on Facebook, that's why we post on the internet, and that's why we expose exactly what we do in a correct way. We have to step in. It's like he said, does he step in and help those people? We have to step in. One, first of all, like he said, it's like, I seen the same thing, and trust me, I interject anything, not only for my safety, but for the safety of others and for the safety as well. So we have to get that stigma out, we have to show them that they are highly educated black men and women who has firearm training. And we need to speak about it eloquently and show them something different. We see accidents, people shoot themselves and everything, and we see the mayhem and everything. We need to show them that we are responsibly armed citizens in this country.
Yes, I totally agree about, we have to talk about it. We have to speak about it. And it wasn't until I became actively involved in learning and training and then becoming an instructor and a range safety officer that I started gaining confidence in my knowledge of firearms. And when I started speaking about it in my circle, I was floored to know that 4 out of the 5 teachers that I have either have a concealed carry or go to the range or are interested in it, but nobody talked about it until I made the first step and brought it up. And it's so important, and we will often go out wearing our firearms t-shirts and whatnot, because people know us in the community for a lot of different things. We teach martial arts, we're educators, I'm a singer, we're ministers. So when they then see that, they know our character, they know who we are as people, and then they see that, like, okay, wait a minute, no, we're not like, you know, yes, there are well-educated black people who do own firearms, and let's talk about it. And we do also teach children, educating children about firearms. It's so important. It's so important to talk to the parents that have kids, and a lot of moms come with questions because they have children. Well, then we have classes for children too. It's so important, especially important to educate them as well about the safety, if you have to use it. So many kids are on the range. So many kids are being taught. So many white kids are being taught. We need to educate our children and teach them the proper use, meaning not just, oh, we're playing, and how many kids, or two kids in the past month got shot playing with the guns that they have around the house. You know, I'm learning, especially when it comes to firearms, you only know what you know, you can only do what you know. And if no one takes the time, each one teach one, gentlemen, if no one takes the time to reach out and talk and educate and share, we have issues with that with many things, but this is such an important topic, and we are being painted a certain way in society for a reason. For a reason. You know, they don't want us to be empowered. You know, there's a reason why they're so quick to give us felonies. Hello, wake up, there's a reason. So it's so important, each one, teach one, share, talk, be proud, be proud. That's right, be proud. It makes a difference.
What we're doing this evening is talking to business owners, Integrity Tactical Solutions LLC, and Fist of Faith Firearms Training. And when we talk about we always say that the Black community is not a monolith. It is important that we raise the profiles of people in our community that are doing a little bit of everything. And this is an opportunity for us to do this. So I have a couple of, everybody sort of picked up, touched on this. How do people respond when you tell them the type of business that you run?
Wow. Well, you know, it's funny because, like you said, we're ministers too, we're preachers. And when they find out, especially knowing my background, a lot of them, you know, I actually do security too for the mayor here at City Hall. So they know that, you know, when it comes to that the firearm training is basically, you know, part of what we do. Most people feel comfortable with it, and they feel safe. You know, they feel comfortable, they feel it's okay. They say, all right, okay. You know, now on the other hand, when they find out my wife who can sing and all that stuff, and find out that she's a sick, she's actually on our video. She's the first one that's actually shooting. And they're like, man, that's your wife? Lord have mercy. Yeah, but they feel more easy and stuff like that. But a lot of times when we see people, you know, they like, well, I know how to do that already. So they feel like, I got this, I already know how to do this already. And I scratch my head and say, okay. And just like, and pray for them.
Mr. Cole, yes.
Please, real quick, I just got to say real quick. It's so funny, most people's reaction, I would say, most white people's reaction when they find out, they're shocked, very taken aback. They don't expect, because whether they realize it or not, they also feed into the stereotypes of us with guns. So when we're talking, and whether it's about music or childcare, or yes, I take care of your children and I run the school, or you see me on the praise team, or this and the other, and then they hear that, they're floored because it's shattering a misnomer that they have about Black people and guns. And I love it. I love it so much because it makes them see us in a whole different light. I love it. Love it.
Jamarkus?
So dig this, I have a slightly different experience. It's the same, but it's different. Because unlike my gentleman over here, combat veterans, I'm just a guy. I'm not law enforcement. I was never in any sort of military, just a guy. And when on my day-to-day, when I'm going to work, I work in hotels, so I see people all over the place. And when they see me, they have no idea. I'm a third-degree Black belt in Chintown. They have no idea I'm a firearms instructor. You know, I hear them talking, you know, and I may interject or something like that, or they may see my phone sitting on my desk and it has my little logo. It says firearms, and they go, and they look at me and I'm like, what? I'm just me. Mm-hmm. And they, you know, some are kind of taken aback, some are intrigued, some have actually taken my classes. You know, it's a whole gamut of things, but it's by and large positive. But the most anxiety I've received, or the most why I receive, is not from them.
Come on.
It's from us.
It's from us.
You know, but it's because all they see is what's going on in the news.
Yes.
All they see is, you know, us acting a fool. Yeah. Even if, and it hurts my heart, when I go on the internet, on YouTube to look for training videos. Yeah. What not to do, or what, you know, the self-defense stuff. Yep.
Come on.
It's all,
say it.
It's us.
It's us.
Yeah. But I know for a fact it's not us,
Exactly.
but that's all they put out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you, we have to fight that,
Yeah.
Yes.
you know, but that's my experience. It's a mixed bag, it really is, but we have to keep fighting that. We have to keep fighting that and show them who and what we truly are.
Amen.
Step one is that I start having these conversations in public
Yeah.
Yeah.
about how important gun ownership is in our community and its legal gun ownership.
Mm-hmm.
From a historical perspective, we know what has happened. I think sometimes we forget that Harriet Tubman always had a rifle on her back.
And 2 pistols.
And 2 pistols. But when we, but that part of the story, I think sometimes gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you ever see a picture of her, she doesn't have the rifle, then you know what the messages are trying to send. Yes, she believed in God and the rifle. I got another question for you. Why do you think legal gun ownership, or do you think legal gun ownership is discouraged in our community? And I'll ask
Here we go.
Well, come on.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Why is it discouraged? Well, again, you have to fight stereotypes. There was a part in our history that I talked about earlier that the black code laws were just that fear alone of the black man rising up, spreading out of the majority of white people. So look at legal history, but we also look at something else, is that we talk about Tulsa. The reason why they end up having to bomb them was because they were winning. So it's a case of, and also pride, because we don't want to go through necessary steps that it takes to go and get a license, go to the classes. I already know how to shoot.
Yeah.
And a lot of it do with pride. But let me say something, in this political climate that we're having for the past 15 years, political violence is getting worse. Everything's politics. If you pick out a soft target and go to a school or a church, that's meant for a reason. So don't think that it's getting better, it's going to get worse, in my opinion. So look out for that. I want to give some references to some of the material. Negroes with Guns by Robert and Nick Williams. That's a staple to read. Negroes and Guns, The Black Tradition of Arms by Nicholas Johnson. We have We Will Shoot Back, Armed Resistance, Mississippi from Freedom Movement. The gentleman's name very hard to pronounce. Umoja is his last name. Good one on that one. Thank you. I butcher names. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. How guns made the civil rights movement possible. Charles E. Cobb and Leon Nixon. These should be staples in our community that we're reading and passing information down to others. Like I said, this is, you can order them offline or go to the library also. You want to answer that last question also?
Well, speaking about Tulsa, one of the laws that was actually passed, believe it or not, is my old alma mater. It's called the Navy Law, Old Navy Law. And that meant that black men couldn't own pistols at the time. There was actually altercation. The whole Tulsa thing came about was because the black man was accused of actually fondling and actually almost raping a white woman in an elevator. They was gonna come out and take him and lynch him. And you had a couple other black men who was actually armed, everything with rifles and pistols, and they confronted the white monarch. And the first thing that came out of the white man's mouth was, "You're an N-word, where you get that pistol from? You're not allowed to have pistols." Well, of course, there's a gunfight broke out. And as you heard the moderator say, we were winning. We were winning big time because we outgunned them. We outgunned them. So why is it so important to be armed and have a legal concealed carry permit in our community? Is because the bad guys don't practice social distancing.
They do not.
And bad people come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. And my God-given right is to have life and have it more abundantly. That's what my Lord and Savior Jesus came for me to do, to have life and have it more abundantly. If I fail as a man to protect my family, my life, then it's nothing. I can't have any abundance. So my job is to be that watchman, in my community and educate my community and protect my community. I truly believe, real talk, and you might hear this, and you can Google me and you hear me say it all the time. I truly believe I was born to do this, to protect my community. No matter what, that's what I was doing. I've been doing ever since I was in the Idaho Hubcap, is protecting the underdog. So education is so important, and having that, in your family, and having that is so important.
I just want to say, they have never wanted us to empower ourselves, ever. They've never wanted us to be in a position where we could possibly cause an uprising. They've never wanted us to be united about anything. There's so many things that are put out to our people, for our people, to distract our people. And in today's state, one of the most important things that they really don't want us to do is to unite and be armed and be able to protect ourselves by any means necessary if someone should come to take us. I think it's always been that way. It's been subtly changed over time, but the fact remains the same. I think it's made so hard for us as a people because ultimately they don't want us to be able to defend and protect ourselves. And we're being targeted, we're being dismantled from the inside out very subtly in other ways, just picking our people apart, picking our families apart. And so we're portrayed in society, as these evil people, and we're just out there and just killing each other and shooting each other off, and they don't show anybody out there. I come to think of it, I can't think of very many, maybe in NCIS, unless you're a police officer or something, do they ever show us being a responsible citizen, being armed, and being black? But, right? So I think it's out of fear is why it's being made so challenging for us to have firearms, for us to be lawfully carrying, that it's a continued dismantling of our people to try and keep us united and safe and protected.
I want to, we're coming up to the close, and Sherman Saxton is going to close us out. But I want to take this opportunity to again thank Jamarkus Anderson of Integrity Tactical Solutions, LLC. And I'm speaking slowly so you can Google this. He has classes available for us to learn how to shoot responsibly. This whole conversation is about improving our people and making sure that we know our rights. And this is the number 2 in the Bill of Rights. I want to thank Byron and Lynette.
Bryant and Liot.
Bryant and Liot. Harrell, my last name is Farrell, and I was like, oh, that rhymes with my last name. They run Fist of Faith Firearms LLC. You can find them online. They have a YouTube channel. Yes, ma'am. So they also run gun safety classes. And I can say that because when I went to go shoot at the range with Jamarkus, they were there. I'm like, ah! Embarrassed to shoot in front of them.
You did great.
Thank you. So I just, again, we want to continue to educate and elevate everyone in our community. This is an important facet of being a U.S. citizen, and so we want to make sure that we know what our rights are, and we exercise them. So, Mr. Saxton, will you close us out?
Sure. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's been a very, very good event, great event. A lot of information went around. If any questions afterwards, you guys hang around for a few minutes? Of course. Ask questions. So, in this climate of political violence we're seeing daily on the TV, who said what, when, where, and how, The answer is it's a gun. Train, be trained till you get tired. Make sure that, like, a significant other, they also get trained in it too.
Oh, yeah.
So with that, we're gonna close out everything. And I thank you for coming out, and it is 7:31.
Okay, thank you.
Time.
So
Thank you, sir.
we have time afterwards to, for
Yes, we have
people.
time afterwards, correct. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great.
Question?
Jamarkus, we're gonna get, Jamarkus is gonna,
Oh, okay.
you're gonna turn up, cause you're on too, right?
Yeah, we're coming up, yeah.
About Florida becoming open carry state again. What is your